And so we'll begin with the 3 fundamentals of leadership. And I looked at different things that I could teach. And what could I teach? I could teach skills, I could teach concepts, precepts, ideas, thought processes. And I wanted to break it down to something far, far simpler than just how do we learn how to be leaders. And so we begin with an introduction of myself. I'm a speaker, consultant, and coach. I'm a senior instructor at Elizabeth City Wing Chun Kung Fu Academy. And I have years of leadership experience, whether working in an office, with different religious leaders, people, so on and so forth. Currently, I'm the office coach and consultant at Atlantic Autism here in Elizabeth City. This is my wonderful family. My wife is seated right over there, my beautiful wife. And here are my children. This is Severus, that's Montrez, and that one's Daniel. Daniel's 6 now, Severus is 3, and you got little Montrez who's still a little tiny guy who runs around with that. It's absolutely heartwarming. And I like to introduce myself with a nice little story. And so Daniel and I, when he was 2 years old, were walking through Walmart. And I had heard tons and tons of people tell me I look like a character from a particular movie. And I always look, no. And even on my mission, when I knocked doors and people would open the door and they'd be like, hey, you look like the guy from da-da-da-da-da. And I'd be like, no. And so one day, I was walking through Walmart with my son. He says, Daddy, there's a picture of you. And I look around, I'm holding him, and I look around. And I'm like, no, what are you talking about? And he's like, Daddy, there's a picture of you. And I'm like, no, there's not a picture of me. And he's like, it's right there. And I look over, and it's just a bunch of DVDs. So I'm thinking, no, kid, like, I'm starting to get irritated at this point because he's emphatically pointing. And I push that down. I make a decision to not get upset at my child. Just like you do with adults, you make decisions to not get upset or to get upset. And I say, what are you talking about? And he points. And when all of that anger, when all of that emotion is gone, I see what he's actually pointing at. And that's what he's pointing at. And as a father, I'm very proud of my son. As a person, I just put my head down in shame. And for years I had denied it, and now I had no way of denying that I look like the guy from Ratatouille. I do not have a mouse in my hair. He is not pulling the strings. I make a lot of hand gestures because I'm Italian, not because I have a mouse in my head. And so I'm going to give you a preview of what we're going to discuss. We're going to go over them when it comes to leadership. We're going to go over the actual truth, and then we're going to go over you. So first we have to ask the question, why leadership? So Basil, why leadership?
Keep things organized.
Keep things organized. Why can't somebody else do that? Why do you need to do it?
Because I can't trust anybody else.
Okay, you can't trust anybody else. You have trust issues, okay. The psychology department would love to talk to you. Why leadership?
To take lead in my own life.
Okay, so to take lead in your own life, how so?
Just not letting anybody else mess it up. I guess the same thing. It's like I don't trust people to take lead in my life, so I'll do it myself.
Okay, wonderful.
Work has to get done. Somebody's got to do something. So take charge of that. Lead it.
So why not let somebody else do it?
Are they going to give me what I want? And would they, if you want things done right, you got to do it yourself.
Okay.
Most of the time.
Most of the time. I mean, and there's an issue with that because we hire specialists. Like, I don't want to fly a plane. I want to hire a pilot. Because I don't know how to fly planes. I don't like being in planes. I don't like roller coasters. Don't like planes. And so that's why we have to discuss them first. So a funny thing I was going to mention later, but I'll mention it now. Because you talked about taking control of your own life. You don't trust other people. So we had this project in one of my organizational development classes. I knew it was participation only. So I want you to understand that I knew that it was participation only before we get into it. But so it didn't depend on how well we did, it just was dependent on whether or not we did it. So we started this assignment where you crash land in a plane, and you crash land, you got all this stuff, somebody's hurt, you've got a few people that need this, and you go through your supplies, and they list your supplies. And then you as a team are supposed to figure out what you're going to do, what's your course of action. And I realized as we were doing this assignment, I had done this before. I knew exactly what the course of action was. I knew exactly what the thing to do was, because this was a common leadership building thing that they do, exercise that they do. And I decided, okay, well, let me do something else then. Let's see how badly I can screw up the rest of the team. I decided, okay, it's a participation grade, so I decided I'm going to see how badly I can screw everybody else up. We died. The short answer is we all would have died. And I persuaded the individuals who were right that we should stay put, that we should use this for this and this for this. I persuaded those individuals based on the confidence that I knew that I was right. I had decided who I was and what I was going to do. And therefore, even at their best intellect, they were conforming to the abilities in which I had. Now, we could talk about Solomon Ash, we could talk about different studies on conformity, but realistically, humans want to naturally go with the crowd. We like to disappear. Why? Why, Basil?
Oh, if you stand out, you're a target.
Okay, there's a saying that the nail that stands out, or the nail that sticks up, is the one that gets hammered down. It's a very popular saying. But what's the purpose of a nail?
Hold things in.
And it has to get hammered down. The only useful nail is the one that's getting used. Why? Why do you see yourself wanting to stand out then and take control of your own life?
Once again, I don't trust the judgment of other people as a whole. So I just decide I'm gonna do it myself. And if I stand out, then that's fine. And if I don't, that's fine. But as long as I live my life how I see fit, then that's good.
You've decided. So we can spend a lot of time on this. We're not. Good versus bad leaders. Good leadership, people thrive, everyone moves up. Potential is imagined and then met. That's what good leaders do. You do that for yourself, you have to do that in your own life. And it keeps people from having control of you. Bad leadership, people suffer, leader moves up or blames others, and the focus becomes dependent on the leader. I love working for people who say this person works with me. That transfers what I am to them. It's not me working for them and then trying to rise above me. It's us all working together. That's good leadership. And we can talk about leadership versus managers. We're not going to spend the time. We're going to go on. We're going to go right on to the truth, because we can talk about them. We've already discussed them. We already know that sometimes certificates, even ranks, various things, they don't give people competency in what they're doing. Even among your teachers, as wonderful as Dr. Mitchell is, I know teachers who are absolutely terrible. Do you want to know why teachers are terrible? Because they're taught their subject matter. They know their subject matter. They're experts in their field. They are not taught how to teach sometimes. They are experts in their field, which is why it's good to learn from them and why we have to adapt to their leadership. However, it does create problems and not everybody blends very easily. That's the truth. And so there are really two things that exist. I'm taking this from a scripture I like. There are two things that exist. There are things to act and things to be acted upon. We can break down all matter, all ideas, all thought processes to action. If there's not a chemical reaction, what do I care about that chemical? If it's not going to react, what is it doing for me? Now, I might want something that causes something to stop acting, but I get to choose that. So human beings, one of the beauties of being human is that you have the ability to choose which one you want to be. I love writing it this way. The beauty of being human is you get to choose. The hardship of being human is that you have to choose. Avoiding making a choice is choosing. And you know what choice that is? You want to know what choice they call that in the military? Not making a choice?
No.
It's the wrong choice. Once I got interviewed by a major in the U.S. military who had done extensive recruiting. And he talked to me about joining the military. And I said I would only join the military if I went in as an officer. It was a promise I made to my grandfather, who was a non-enlisted man. And he said, what makes you think that we would want you? And I said, well, I can make a decision when no one else will. And he's, that's exactly, I mean, he's driving. This scared me because he's got his hand on the stick shift and he's driving and he takes his head away from the wheel and is just like, that's exactly what we want. Right there. That's what we want. Because if you're not willing to make a choice, you just made one and that's the wrong one. People love to bunch up. We like to get close to other people. But any combat vet will tell you that bunching up near walls in a city makes you good targets for shrapnel. You have to get comfortable being separated slightly from the pack. What is this picture of?
Squirrel in the road.
Squirrel on the road. What is it doing?
Taking a nap?
It's taking a dirt nap. It's taking a very long nap. I love this image. It took me a long time to find this image. Where is it at in the road, presumably?
Middle of the road.
It's in the middle of the road. And it's still dead. So my wife once accused me, she laughed, and now I have to tell this story. My wife once accused me, we were driving, and this possum was cutting across the road. And so, being a Texan, I know not to swerve my car. I was taught from my youth not to swerve my car. But I decided I'm going to swerve out of the way. My wife doesn't want me hitting this possum. So I start to swerve a little. Well, the possum decides, oh, that was scary. Those bright lights are scary. I'm going to turn around and go back to where I was. And I plowed into it. I'm going like 45. I mean, that thing's dead.
Great hit.
Yeah, I mean, I got 1,000 points for it. I got even more points when my wife said, "You did that on purpose!" I said, "No, honey. No, I didn't do that on purpose. I was trying to avoid it. Like I was swerving to avoid it. And in doing so, I killed it. Because there are a lot of dead squirrels because they want to make a decision. You have to make a decision, or somebody else will make it for you, or something else will make it for you. I know a lot of addicts, and a lot of addicts love to say the drugs make the decision. And let me tell you, no, you made that decision a long time ago by not choosing to figure things out. And what you have to figure out is, what are your priorities? People make time for their priorities. I have 3 children. I'm in a master's program. I work. I do this. I do that. I do that and the other. And I have time for what I make time for. I had a friend once tell me, I don't have time to do homework. So I said, okay, what do you do during the week? Okay, we talked about it. Okay, he doesn't have time during the week. Fine. We got to his weekend. We talked about his weekend. He played D&D all day on Saturday. So about 10 hours of D&D, Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, fine, that's reasonable. You want to have a Saturday, you've worked all week. Okay, what do you do Sunday? Oh, I drive to Norfolk, and then I play another 10 hours of D&D, and then I drive home. I just looked at it for a moment and then thought, okay, we'll never have a conversation again about how you don't have time. Because I don't have time for that. because I'm not going to make time for that. You make time for what's a priority. So you have to grow out before you grow up. What we were discussing just before we started is actually most of the effort that people make in their lives is not seen by others. It just isn't. You're never going to know how much effort somebody had to put into something to get to where they're at. You're never going to know what it feels like to be digging out of a trash can before they became rich. Or what it's like when your wife is telling you, hey, you've got to make this work. And you say, okay, I'm going to try one more. That's how Dyson came to me. Dyson vacuums. Got a zillionaire. He's just all sorts of rich now. But he had gotten to the point where they were done. And he tried one more. You have to establish your correct priorities. And then go from there. That's how trees in North Carolina stay up instead of getting knocked down. Tie a little off, Basil? Thank you. Appreciate you. I don't know if anyone gets all off there. And you have to protect those boundaries. Because your priorities matter, you have to make boundaries. You have to do them as acts of preservation. You have to do them as acts of service. So making boundaries, I have a friend, he has schizophrenia. I pick him up randomly, I'll see him walking. Nice guy, likes to go to the gym a lot. And I'll see him, he's very surprised because he's African American and in his entire time in Elizabeth City, he's never been picked up. So I've known him about 6 years, and I see him randomly. He's in his 20s. He's a nice guy. And if you've ever met somebody with schizophrenia, you know that they will talk and talk and talk. And I've got things I've got to do that don't include me sitting in his driveway for 35 minutes. So as an act of service to him and to myself, as an act of love to him, and as an act of preservation of my time, I will simply say, I'll call him by name and then say, you need to get out of the car. Mike, I'm going to go. Please get out of the car. And he respects that. He understands that. Why do you prefer somebody that will give you clear boundaries?
Then I know when I haven't overstayed my welcome, when I have talked too much, when I need to leave and get out of the car. When the boundaries are clear, I know when I've said too much.
Would you say it removes the anxiety of the social interaction?
Oh yeah, I don't have to worry about... it's easy to overthink. Did I talk too long? Did I stay too long? Did I overextend myself? When it's clear, you need to get out of the car, you talk too much, got things to do, that's clear.
Do you feel offended?
No.
Why not?
I don't know. They made it clear, they expressed themselves, typically don't do it in a hurtful way, it's just, they made it clear that they have things that they need to do, and of course, I respect this person and their time.
Yes. So it becomes mutual respect.
Yes.
We have lives. We have things that we want to do. It's like, we have things that we've got to do in our lives. I can't spend all of my time. One of the days that he wanted to hang out, he called me and I'm like, I'm actually on the way to the hospital with my wife because we're going to have a baby. And he's like, oh, I thought you wanted to hang out. And I was like, no, I don't. I want to go to the hospital with my wife who's having a baby. And he was like, oh, okay. And we understood each other. So we had to have boundaries. And so we get to you in leadership. I couldn't decide, and I want your opinion. Should I put you in leadership or you and leadership? What sounds better to you?
You in leadership seems a lot more like action, like you're in this.
Okay. It takes on its own presence.
Yeah.
You're present. What about you? Which one would you prefer?
I would actually say you and leadership in general. It's just a lot more broad, I thought.
Okay. Do you like the idea of it being broad as opposed to being specific with? Because this might, if I may, does this seem as though I'm saying, okay, you need to be a leader?
Yeah, perhaps, but also like you're not going to be a leader in everything in your life at the end of the day. I mean, you can be as much of a leader as you can, but other people are going to have influence on you no matter what. So it's also important to understand the relationship between you and your leaders as well as yourself as a leader.
Yes.
That's why I think that,
And that's what I kind of thought. Thank you for the response. That's kind of where I was thinking of it as well. Good leaders are good followers. If we follow a military idea, or let's do pilots. Let's do pilots. Good pilots are good followers because they follow regulations, they follow guidelines, they follow safety checks. I had to study the crash at Tenerife for one of my classes in organizational leadership. And we see the breakdown in the emotion of a leader. Human beings are emotional creatures that back up their emotion with logic. Learning is an emotional experience. I have to have some level of intellect to gather that together. But if I don't want to learn it, or let me turn this into a question, how easy is it to learn something that you don't want to learn?
not easy at all.
What's it for?
That's what quiz is for.
Yeah.
That's a very honest answer, and they say in the medical field that you can treat honesty, you can't treat a lie. Honesty works. It's one of the boundaries. It's why that as a boundary works so well, because now we can actually evaluate truth. If you don't do it, someone else will. Every group has a leader. I love people watching. You go to the mall, you'll see people. There are people watchers as well. I already know you. You go to the mall and you'll see. How am I doing on time? What time?
Good.
I would say about 10
It's
minutes.
10 minutes. Okay, good. I got time for this. So, it's really interesting. When you go to the Renaissance Festival, Texas has the biggest Renaissance Festival in the country. And I worked as a monk there. It suited me well. I was a Lutheran monk, mind you. And not that I have anything against Catholics, but I didn't want to be a Catholic monk. I wanted to be a Lutheran monk. And so it was very interesting to me because I watched people become almost more primal as they had masks on. So when you're playing a character, you're not projecting the same social status. So you would watch women, particularly teenage girls, that would do this very interesting thing, and I watched them walk around, where one would be in the front, there'd be two on the sides, and they'd be staggered. And then there would be one on the left staggered. Now, what else moves like that?
Coyotes.
Coyotes. Okay, yeah,
Geese.
that's slightly offensive, but I won't take offense to that because I'm not a teenage girl.
It reminds me of geese.
Geese. You see them fly. You look up and you see it. That's their exact formation in so many ways. The alpha's leading, and then you have two staggered on one side and another one. Now watch this. And I found something out as I viewed this over and over again. And this didn't matter. So it wasn't just women. It wasn't teenagers. It was everybody there played the social role based on what they thought they should be projecting as their character. But they sold themselves out from our normal social masks. Does that make sense? When we wear a mask, when physically we're wearing a mask or a costume or acting in a role, we think that we escape. But really what we're doing is projecting another image. It's the same thing that the addict does, the drug addict. They show up high to something, and then they're like, oh, I don't look high. And they're like, no, I'm cool. Like, I'm good to go. I don't smell like weed. Like, I'm good. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way because a normal person is like, I notice the difference. It's easy to see those things because the mask is off. So you brought it up earlier. Oh, what do you want? You in leadership is a very important thing because the question is, what do you actually want? Do you want more money? Do you want more success? Do you want more time off? Do you want more? Because that's time with my family is success to me. What do you actually want out of what you're doing as a leader? Well, yeah, go ahead and answer. Yes.
Well, I just want to be that cool old grandpa that has a million cool stories and life experiences, and I mean whether I'm a grandfather in a like literal sense or just a strange old man with all the stories.
I was gonna say the creepy guy that gets the ball knocked into his yard and's got the giant dog, and then
or
he
like
starts Sandlot.
You want to be like the doctor?
the doctor, or like I had this image in my mind one day where it was like I want to live near like alone and like this weird orb in the trees, this orb house.
What do you mean orb?
Like there's these little orb houses that like are trees and they're awesome. Anyway, in the jungle or something like that, near like a village or something, have like a bunch of cows and like bring the village meat every once in a while. Just be like the mysterious old meat man.
As we were saying earlier about drug addicts.
But we get right to the truth.
I like the stories one better than Meat Man.
But that works. That works because that's what you want. If that's what you see as success, then that's a goal to work towards. People always want to do things. Go ahead. We always want to do things. People don't lack motivation. This is Jocko Willing. People don't lack motivation. They lack discipline. Everybody I know on this planet wants to do something with their life. They want to do something.
I mean, I know a few who don't.
But what did they do then?
Well, they don't want to do something in the more they don't want to be alive sense, and
But why then are they alive?
God, I don't know. Sometimes I look at them and wonder the same thing. I had some interesting friends.
It is very powerful. It's the closest part of the brain to the spine. It teaches us to stay alive. So what does that person want?
I don't know, but at the end of the day, I do know that all people want to be happy, and that always is it. It's always just the means of which and what they consider happy, what they consider their peace. I haven't talked to them in a while because, like, yeah, that was not a good person to be around.
Boundaries.
Yeah. I can't say.
And for the most part, we can't. We don't get the right to delve into people's minds and know exactly what they're thinking. However, we do see that people want things. Even some of the most depressed people I've ever met still want to eat out every day. They still go to work. They still want peace and contentment. They want people to like them. They want things to do. I mean, even some of the laziest people I've ever seen on the planet work to be lazy. They do so much work because they don't have their priorities correct that they do everything that they can to avoid trying to work. My father was one of those people. He would do more work than what was worth to accomplish a goal. So what did he actually lack? He lacked discipline. Because we all want something. You know why people really don't like Jeff Bezos? Because he has money they don't.
Yeah.
And I always ask those people, okay, so what are you going to do with that money? If you want to tell me how a rich person should act, what are you going to do to get rich? And then what are you going to do with that money? Yeah, I'll tell you what. In 1996, I'm 10 years old, the internet's coming around. I wish there's a store that I could buy anything on. That's basically eBay, and I can just buy stuff on. And guess what? That's Amazon. And guess what I did with that idea? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And so you know what I have based on that? Nothing. We can sit there and do, I call it bong water mysticism. Because you can go through it all day. You can have all the discussions. You can talk about how to solve world hunger, how to do all the peace. And then at the end of the day, you pick up the bong, you pour it on the plant, and you call it a day. That's all it is. Smoke and mirrors. That's all it is. Let's talk about somebody who didn't have smoke and mirrors. Oscar Schindler. There's a movie made after him called Schindler's List. Phenomenal movie. He decided to decide. Now, Oscar Schindler was an Austrian. And if I understand correctly, soon after the German occupation, and Basil might be able to correct me if I'm wrong, soon after the German occupation, he became a Nazi, was supporting the Nazi party, and then he really didn't like the Nazis and what they were doing to the Jews. And so what he did is he looked at his priorities as a very rich factory owner who had had several failed businesses before and now was very successful. He made a priority to save as many Jews as he could. That became his priority. And he spent his entire fortune buying and bribing Jews to come work at his factory, who were slated to go to concentration camps like Auschwitz and Dachau. He had his priorities, and then he established boundaries to keep those priorities. He did not come out saying very openly that, hey, we need to save Jews, we need to protect them. Why? Because they would have black-bagged him and killed him. And then guess how many Jews he gets to save at that point?
0.
He saved 1,200 lives. 1,200. That's a leader. And he's the only Nazi that was buried in Jerusalem. Now, it's very important to me as a concept, because for them, that's a very holy idea. And so for them to take his body as a member of the Nazi party and then burying him, if you want to leave a legacy, whether it's as Meat Man, or living in an organ tree, or doing both, whether it's as a pilot, whether it's as a father, whether it's as a person who's capable of great and terrible things, you have to decide. You have to prioritize. I had a roommate who loved to do this thing. He would tell me how he worked on a project all day. I've been doing homework for 8 hours today. I was like, no. You were on Facebook and you were scrapbooking every single time I saw you. So don't tell me you were on Facebook or you were working for 8 hours a day. Because that's a lie. And you can't treat a lie. You have to be honest with yourself. So you have to stop doing things. I don't like dead man's goals where you stop doing something. Why? Because a dead man can do them. I like goals that you replace something with. You do something better. You find something better. So you take what you want, you take your priorities, and you protect them. And that's what makes you a great leader. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.